Neurofibromatoma. The only reason why I know that is because I worked down the hall in grad school from a lab who studied it. Anyways, it's a cancer caused by a mutation in one gene, this neurofibro whatever gene. And so that one mutation can lead to cancer. And if you get diagnosed with this cancer, you're usually dead in like 2 years. Because it's affecting your brain cell. Your brain cell's kind of important, you know? So if you mess them up, this cancer is going to be really, really detrimental. Whereas other types of cancers, there's even slow-growing brain tumors. So it all depends on the cell and the genetics behind it. So again, that's what still complicates it. Not all cancer is the same.
Person to person.
Yeah, and in the genetics, each individual, we have our own genetics, so that's going to dictate what the cancer does too. So like I said, there's so many different variables coming in to play, which is why cancer is so different from case-to-case basis. And so it has to do with the cell type, it has to do with the normal function of that cell, it has to do with the genes that are being expressed in that cell, it has to do with mutations that one person might have compared to another. So there's all these different factors that can figure into it. So like I said, cancer is complicated. It's a take-home message. All right, yeah.
When it gets into your lymph system, but it hasn't formed a tumor, does that just show as the cells growing? Or?
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to really know that it's metastasized until you see a tumor, or until you feel something. So you're not going to know. I mean, yes, you could sit there and we have the capability of tracing a cell, but if you have a patient and you know that it's metastasizing, wouldn't you want to stop it? You don't want to sit there and trace it. So it doesn't make sense to do it that way. So unfortunately, it's really hard to tell if it's been spread or not.
Most of the time that it happens that way, it's just by coincidence. Like you go in for like a...
Yeah, people don't even know they have cancer until they go in and they've got a headache and they get a CAT scan and it's like, oh, you have brain cancer. It's like, oh, well, crap.
The blood test for the gene or whatever for cancer, is that very accurate? And
so
why is it not used more often?
So this is where genetic counseling comes into play. So if you have, because a lot of cancer is inherited. Some cancer is familial, means, you know, if your mom had breast cancer and your grandma had breast cancer, you're going to have a pretty good shot of having breast cancer. So that's familial, and then there's also spontaneous cancer too. So you have stuff that's genetically based, and then stuff that can just, you know, if I go lay in a tanning bed for 4 hours a day, that would be an example of a spontaneous one. It's not my genetics. It's not what I was born with. It's something that I'm inducing into myself. Just like if I went and, you know, smoked 4 packs of cigarettes a day and get lung cancer. That's spontaneous, even though you're doing it to yourself. So if it's familial, that means there's some underlying genetics that were passed down, and then that's how you get it. So some cancer is familial, some of it's spontaneous. And I forget you were talking about how to test for it. So if it's that familial type of cancer, you go to a genetic counselor. She takes a family history, who has this disease, who has that disease, and then based on the inheritance patterns, which we have not talked about yet, but we will, can predict the percentage of either having a child with that particular disease, or it will actually, the process, you can actually sequence your own DNA. You can do it for $400. I can take a cotton swab, get some cells out of my cheek, send it off to a biotech company for $400, and they will sequence my genome. Particularly these genes that are known to be associated with disease and cancer. So one of those genes is going to be P53, because P53 is mutated in a bunch of types of cancers. P10 is another one.
Why don't they drop that price a little bit?
That's cheap. That's dirt cheap.
It kind of sounds
Is that the same as the DNA, like to find your...
Yes.
I got some spit. Come on now. $400 for some spit.
To know the outcome of your future, to know your future.
Is that the same test for like genetic, like ethnicity? Like you see on Ancestry.com?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same sort of idea, because certain ethnicities have certain genes that are turned on compared to other ethnicities. So yes, you're sequencing it to see if the gene is turned on or turned off. So it's kind of the same idea, except this, the genetic counseling, that's more specific to a particular disease or a particular condition.
But wasn't there just like a routine, not routine, but a blood test that you could get with your routine exams called like P32 or something like that?
I don't
You're
know.
not familiar with, okay.
No, I'm not familiar with that. But I mean, usually with the ethnicity thing, all it is like different proteins being expressed on different genes. So you can run a simple little test to see if the protein associated with this ethnicity is there versus if it's not there. So it's kind of the same, but you're still just scanning the DNA and looking to see what it says. It's just different applications.
And it just tells you if you have a high probability versus.
Exactly. So just because I have a mutation in P53 doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to get cancer. I mean, the odds aren't good. But another one of these genes that gets scanned for is BRCA1 and BRCA2. These are the genes that are most often mutated in breast cancer. So y'all, Christina Applegate and Angelina Jolie, they went and got their DNA sequence, and they both had mutations in either both or one of these genes. They say just because you get a mutation doesn't mean that you're 100% going to get cancer. But it does increase the odds. In the case of a BRCA1 mutation, it increases your chance of ovarian or breast cancer by 5 times. So it increases the likelihood, but it's not automatically a death sentence. So anyways, there was controversy because both of these high-profile actresses found out they had mutations and they automatically went and had a double mastectomy to prevent that from happening, even though they weren't 100% sure that it was going to happen. The benefit, though, is if you get the double mastectomy, there's no way you're going to get breast cancer or ovarian cancer. So, a little drastic, but, you know, it might have ended up saving their lives, or they might have just done that to themselves just because they were paranoid. Who knows? Decisions are made by own individuals, and they have to live with their decisions. But anyways,
If it's in your DNA, why wouldn't you still get it in your ovaries or so forth?
because something about the breast tissue like harvests this mutation, and you know all the systems are connected to one another, so you can have a mutation in breast tissue that can affect your ovaries, even though the DNA in your ovaries and your DNA is the same. It's just which parts are being turned on to make protein and which parts are being turned off to not make protein. So that differs based on the cells you're talking about. But if you something about this type of mutation, if you affect the breast tissue, it drastically decreases your chance of getting any other kind of like ovarian cancer. I don't know the mechanisms behind it. It's probably really complicated, but that's why. Yeah.
I'm not trying to be funny or anything,
Yeah.
but is any of those questions going to be on the test?
No, like I'm not going to ask you about this or the. I mean, this is just more
I know it's
discussion. So
interesting.
it's
and things
interesting,
like
right?
that.
So that's
But
why
we
I
know
brought it up.
it's
But I'm not going to. I mean, as long as you know that a tumor can be benign or malignant and what that means and what happens, that's what I care about. This is just interesting. This is just to help y'all learn. Besides me yapping up here for 20 minutes or an hour and 20 minutes. Okay. Oh, we're done. All right. So.
That was it?
Yeah, that was it. So, do y'all want to do some bonus questions? Yes, yes.
Are you posting a review?
I am going to post a review tomorrow.
Okay.
And as far as the review that we're going to do in class, I found it's more beneficial instead of doing the Jeopardy game
Yeah.
if we just make it as like a review session. So that means on Wednesday, you know, look over all your slides, look over all your notes, anything you're not comfortable with, bring it to me on Wednesday and we'll just have kind of a group discussion, a group review. So I'm not going to come with all these questions and stuff, but I will have sent you those questions. So in other words, look at those questions. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, try to figure it out on your own, but if you can't,
Put them up tomorrow?
Question.
I'm sorry, what?
Put them up tomorrow?
Yes, I'm going to make it and put it up tomorrow. Yeah.
Along with that, can you just like, it doesn't have to be on a test or anything like that, but would you mind like writing like an example of exactly what you're looking for, like in the